Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the podcast that we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. You'll also find us on Facebook, the Upper Tier. We're on Twitter, the Upper Tier. You'll also find us on Spotify, we're on Anchor, and anywhere else you pick up your podcast, either audio or video, we will be there. So as always, support Irish podcasting. And today's show again is brought to you by Hogan Elite Trophy Hire. So head over to Facebook and hit a like on that page. And if you have any requirements for your special occasion to have a trophy there or silverware, hit up Mark over there on Hogan Elite Trophy Hire and he'll look after you. Mention that you're a viewer or subscriber of the podcast and you'll get a nice little discount for that special day. So today we have a special show. We're taking a break from the Premiership and the normal run-of-the-mill that we're facing. And as Liverpool fans and Leeds fans, we're probably delighted to be taking a break from the Premiership. And we're going to do a show today that we're calling The Rise of the Milans. And it's good to see the both Milan teams back up there again. So when we were going to do an Italian football show, I said there was nowhere else to go but the two Irish OGs of Italian football, if you like, representing the Blues is Craig, even though he's normally a Liverpool fan. How are you, Craig?
All good. No, it's nice to have a bit of a breather from the Premier League and nice to go with it on a different topic, a bit more of a sweeter topic.
Nice. And our resident Leeds fan, who would never normally represent the Reds, but is representing the Reds today of AC Milan. Dean, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. Nice to be here, man. Kaka's down my heart, so that's just how it was, you know.
That's it. Excellent. So I suppose, where do we start with this? Craig, we'll start with you first with Inter Milan, because they're obviously top of the league at the moment and they seem relenting at the moment. Even though they have major problems at the moment going on in the background, it doesn't seem to be affecting the players at all. And you know the way we normally talk about these superstars who are normally in the game for the money. Clearly, these lads at the moment are not in it for the money. They're out there and they're performing amazingly well. Kick us off there with Inter Milan and give us a rundown.
Yeah, I think you summed it up really well there, Niall. If this was any other situation, lads be probably looking, at the exit door saying, here, this is ridiculous. I'm not getting paid, so why should I put a performance in on the pitch? But thankfully, the other side is shining through that you're playing for Inter Milan, one of the biggest clubs in Italy and in European football. And I think what has a lot of them grounded and a lot of them focused, and not only a title challenges on the cards, but Antonio Conte's man management skills on and off the pitch, I think, has been essential. When we lost Jose back in the end of 2009, 2010, after winning the treble, when he went to Madrid, we kind of lost our way a bit. Rafa came in, obviously, after losing the job at Liverpool. We had Stramaccioni, we had Mazzari, we had Mancini back again. And it was not like glue. It was just trying to paper over cracks of past successful teams. But Antonio Conte has come in and really let loose on them. And they're all on one level. There's no one bigger than Inter Milan. Whereas, as you just said, as rightfully so, a player gets too big for their boots and they're like, I don't have to be here, I can just go off elsewhere. There's a lot of issues off the pitch, money, installments, a lot of things that would distract you usually, especially title challenge or not. But I think Antonio Conte should be given immense credit because we even had a game last night, one of the toughest teams in the league and really good European side, Atlanta, who score for fun. We shut them out at a 1-0 and that's not very easy to do. So I think not only the players, but Conte installing that on and off the pitch focus and concentration has been absolutely immense and much needed for Inter Milan.
Yeah, I suppose looking from the outside in, obviously you have some of those lovely jerseys there, which are obviously going to change this year. Pirelli are pulling out of their sponsorship, I think.
27 years.
27 years, which is such a long time, such a dedication to a club. But you would think that with the situation that the club is in, it could go on to win the league this year, and it could.
From what I can,
go ahead.
From what I can gather is they're looking for either investors who will leave Sunning in charge. They're an electrical company from China, but they've also had, you probably know, they've had a bad previous with a Chinese club, as in it's all gone good and then it went really fast downhill. And my concern would be, if Conte or the players do get a feel as in there's no way back from this, will they all look aside and say, I'm not going down with this sinking ship and we're back to square one again with Inter Milan? There's talk about the badge being possibly changed as well, like the Juventus Roma situation. I don't want that. Like, you know, I'm sure Juventus fans obviously didn't want it either. Like, you know, it's tradition, it's traditional badge. So I don't know if that's a money thing as well, or.
Yeah, I can't imagine a change of the badge with the history that Inter Milan have would go down well with
Yeah.
the fan base whatsoever, and especially the Italian fan base. They're so they're avid, staunch supporters of their clubs. There's no doubt about it. I spoke last night on the Monday mashup. We alluded a little bit to Inter Milan and some of the troubles that they're having off the pitch, if you like, and I noticed that Man City are kind of pulling out of the Haaland deal, and apparently they're interested, or they've been linked with Romelu Lukaku, which I thought was very interesting. You know what I mean? Because it gave me a throwback back to remember the banners in Manchester saying Carlos Tevez, welcome to Manchester, with the blue banners. And
the funny thing with Lukaku, like a lot of people might see him as a hold-up, big kind of striker, but he's a lot more than that. He's worked a lot with his feet. I thought his touches were very poor, probably down in the Premier League, but he actually has a strike partnership who's equally, I think, is going to be good or even better. Lautaro Martinez is absolutely outstanding and deserves just as much credit as Romelu in the Italian league. The two of them play very well off each other, so it's not like a selfishness or one is playing and the other is not. They have a good partnership together and they've assisted each other well. So I would be very sad to see that broken, but I understand the interest in either of them.
Yeah, I looked at the previous game and I was looking at his link-up play with Sanchez, and I mean, these two players, could they be poles apart in terms of what they look like in their final year in the Premiership? Like, it's just, both of them look outstanding. I mean, their passage of play, their link-up play, and even the assists that they're getting for each other and everything. Like, it's absolutely incredible. Like, they're two different players, you know what I mean? And it's great to see it as well, because we knew that they were two world-class players, but just obviously being caught up in the United situation at the time and all, you know, just, you know, badly affects your play, you know.
Very much filtering through the spine. Brozovic is very good in the holding midfield. We got Nico Barella in, who's a rising Italian footballer, who's very, very good, very highly rated. But then beyond that, we have Skriniar and De Vrij, who are extremely good together, extremely well represented in European football. And then Handanovic behind them with years of experience and knowledge of the Serie A. So the structure and the spine is in a great, great place. As you alluded to, we can bring in the likes of Alexis Sanchez on and off. We have Sensi, we have Ranocchia, we have good experienced Italian players. Ashley Young is still there, believe it or not, as well. Christian Eriksen is there. So the depth is really strong, and everyone, even though with everything going on off the pitch, the motivation is there, the hunger is there, and there's no selfishness. There's no like, I'm bigger than anyone else at the club, which again, I allude to Antonio Conte, I think has everyone one level playing field, and it's great. I'm really enjoying it, thank God. Like,
yeah, no, they look definitely a formidable side at the moment, you know. Let's switch it up and head over to the red side of Milan, the red and black. Let's head over there and have a chat about the bohemians of Italian football, if you like it.
Oh, Jesus, don't say that.
Come in here, Dave. Talk to me about race.
I'm Michelle's man. Jesus, don't say that.
Make a case now for AC Milan. Give us a bit of a background about how they were out in the wilderness for a while and now they're back pumping again.
Yeah, well, all started when I can't think of the actual Italian name. I remember the trouble Juventus got relegated and AC were docked and was minus 12 points as well. It's still a hangover from that. Them and Inter. Juventus seemed to be the only team that came out of that. They won the league. Juventus kept all the players. They went straight up and they won the league, I think, every year except this year. I think Inter have wrapped up this year. But it's a massive hangover since that, and the new Chinese owners that came in as well. It's just ridiculous. I'm looking at the players that they brought in here, and I don't think there's one player that we'll probably know in that 2016. Suso. They sold Suso. Like, you know what I mean? The players that AC Milan should be signing. AC Milan should be linked with Haaland. Not the AC Milan now, but the AC Milan, the club. Like, they're not linked. They're not in the same conversation as the cities, United, Liverpool, Juventus, Barcelona anymore. You know what I mean? Like, for a club like AC Milan, that club that we watch dismantle United, think it was 3-2 at Old Trafford as well. Kaka put the two lads on the back. It was just, they had an incredible team, but these incompetent owners who come in and they just think, oh, it's a money rack, and it has been. The only one that was probably decent with this is the City owner, where they pumped into the youth, pumped into the City. These are the people come in and are just like, oh, this is my little toy, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, they just messed around. They had great players since that, with Zlatan and Thiago Silva. Well, great players, but incompetent owners and stupid managers, and not keep managers on long enough. You know what I mean? And we know how that works. A manager comes into the Premier League now. If he loses 3 on the bounce, he's already next for the chop.
Yeah, well, I remember, I go back to the, being a Liverpool fan, I remember the Crespos and the Shevchenkos and all that, you know what I mean? And like
Clarence Seedorf. Oh, God.
Maldini, Nesta.
Nesta.
Yeah,
oh.
Yeah. I mean, I go back and I still sometimes go back and look at that Istanbul final, and I still to this day don't know how we did it. And it was, what was it, either 1 or 2 years later when we faced them again, they put us to the sword that night, you know what I mean? But very, very impressive, But yeah, you're right about AC Milan and Inter. Like, AC Milan are a huge club, steeped in history, and should be at the forefront of European football, and certainly should be in the conversations when these big player signings come up. You know what I mean? There's no reason for it at all. It's a fantastic league. It's it's the culture of football, and I mean, it's an avid fan base. They've a lot to look forward to as well. I mean, the new stadium's going to come along now. The purists would say, like, it's, you look at a lot of clubs that have moved into new stadiums and hasn't necessarily gone well for them. But I mean, if you think about the history that the San Siro is steeped in, you know what I mean? It's football 101 in terms of history. If you were ever going to think of a football museum, the San Siro is the place to be, really, when you think of the history of that club, the big European nights, the massive wins, the magnitude of the players that have played and stood on that ground, both home and away. You know what I mean? Is absolutely massive. I don't think there's a top player in European football in the last 20 years that hasn't at some stage stepped onto that hollow turf. So yeah, they should be definitely in the conversation. What you're making on Zlatan going back there? I mean, how have you felt about that? I mean, it's kind of one to kind of balance thing, isn't it? Because it's normally the Zlatan show.
Like, it's unbelievable. 39 years of age, like, and I was that's because I was reading there up the other day, and he might be getting a new contract as well now. Whether he accepts that or goes to China or something, he deserves anyway. The bloke's a machine. Like, he probably plays until he's 50. But the interview as well he was doing, and he was like, "That's how good I am." He goes, "I played with Maldini. Now I'm playing with Maldini's son." And he goes, "Now I'm going to play with Maldini's grandson after this." It's just an absolute machine. But then again, where do you go from here now? Like, as I said, they're not in the top 10 now anymore. If you're looking for as a striker, like, if Salah was to leave Liverpool now, AC Milan wouldn't be in the conversation. Inter might now because, well, obviously not with the money trouble, like, but they're so far down now after all this trouble that's been caused, like, and it's unacceptable, really, especially for a big club.
But I think with the resurgence of both Milan clubs as well, and the competitiveness now again of Serie A, I think it's really, really important that they will come back into that conversation. I mean, there's a new stadium being built, and there's a new sort of attractiveness again to the Italian league and its competitiveness that was lacking there. You know what I mean? Because you know yourself, I mean, we had something similar as well with Rangers in the Scottish League when they got deducted the points and they went down. Look at how long it's taken them to come back up and be competitive with Celtic again. You know what I mean? So it does take time, and it can take a generation of time in reality. You know what I mean? But to see both those teams up there again is a breath of fresh air. And no disrespect to Napoli or Roma or any of these other teams. I mean, they all belong in the conversation because it's such a competitive league. And, if you had 4 or 5 of those clubs up there, I mean, for years, if you were thinking of moving to Italian football and you were a player, there was only one place to go. You were going to Juventus, or you weren't moving there, were you? Because, you know what I mean? Because there was no competition there. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a breath of fresh air to see both those big European powerhouses. And they'll always be in my conversation as European powerhouses, because I grew up on the great Milan teams and Inter teams, you know what I mean? So it's great to see them back up there again. In terms of this season, Craig, I mean, how would you see this season panning out? I mean, is it kind of a foregone conclusion that Inter will see it out?
Because at the same time, we have that conversation as we're 6 points clear now, got a great win last night against Atlanta. But what really has turned it around for us as well is our winning in the big games, the head-to-heads. We bet Milan 3-0. Not easy team, obviously, to play. It's AC Milan regardless at the end of the day. We bet Lazio. We drawed with Juve and beat them 0-0 and 2-0. So when you're taking the points from those around you who's going to hurt you most, and you're winning the games against the so-called smaller teams, and you're not dropping points, you just have that rotation of winning mentality, which again, I allude to Conte. I think we're going to be okay because of him. I think he'll see the job out professionally. My concern is, will all this be wrapped up? Will Lukaku's bonuses be sorted? Will the wages be sorted? Will the installments be fulfilled? Hakimi's a wonderful player. Dino obviously knows him from Real Madrid. I don't want that to linger on. And, if we win the Serie A and then it's like, oh, lovely, Inter Milan are back. But then you go to the summer and it's like, we've no money. And this all comes back around full circle. And just to touch on as well, I'm very happy for, as I said already, for Milan. Both of them should be up there and they should never be out of conversation. Both of them should be more than relevant than any other team in European football. So it's great that we're both back up there, and it's nice kind of like friendly competition, which Milan is going to do better. And, it's nice and it's needed. Like, I hope that, Dino said, it looks like we have it wrapped up. I hope so. 6 points and we look like we have a lot of steel about us. We're not dropping points and we're winning our main head-to-head targets, which is really good.
Well, I think Conte tactically is brilliant at frustrating teams, isn't he? I mean, the way he sets up and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And the fact now that he does have guys up front that can, put the ball in the back of the net, the power of Lukaku and Sanchez and the other player you mentioned, would make a huge difference to an Antonio Conte team, because he does kind of set up a bit defensively in an old school type of way. But once he has goal scorers, he has shown, he showed it at Chelsea as well.
The back three, I think, is Bastoni's only a new Italian kind of centre half as well. But again, it's not shown. It's not like he's coming in and we're just throwing him in there. Skriniar and De Vrij are absolutely exceptional. I'd be worried that someone will come in. Everyone mentions Koulibaly, Upamecano. I'm not looking no further than these two Inter Milan centre halves. Obviously, Dino knows them, I'm sure, very well as well. Yourself. These two lads, I don't know how they're not on anyone's radar, because my fear is that they would be broken up.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the concern is, as you said, if the financial situation deteriorates further and they don't get their house in order, it's very hard to be discussing going to a new stadium and everything and all, isn't it? When
it goes out the window, takes a back seat,
And there is absolutely no doubt there is a number of powerhouse European clubs out there at the moment that are struggling defensively as well. And they will absolutely go and raid that club without a shadow of a doubt. And it would be sad to see it, because they're, just getting back there again. It'd be horrible to see that group of players broke up.
I don't want to win the Serie A and then that's it. It's like a one-off and we're back down to square one, 6th, 5th, 4th, miles away. We'll see how it goes though.
The rumours already is that I think they owe United another 20 or 30 million for Lukaku. So Skriniar is the bait in that deal where they're like, you take him and that's that.
We owe 7 million for Hakimi installment. We owe Lukaku bonuses. We owe, and then did the Chinese just jump ship, or did they get investment and then did they leave it in good hands and then go, this is the thing. And then whoever comes in, are they going to just take what you said, Dino, as well? I agree. Like a toy. Oh, I have a few Bob. Inter Milan's a big name. We'll just fucking mess with them. You don't want that either, you know what I mean?
What happens in a case where, is Italian football obviously the same as the English league or the Scottish league, where, let's suppose Inter Milan were to, go bust, let's say, for argument's sake. Let's say they win the league. Do they get deducted all the points as usual? Do they get voted down into the second division?
That's what happened with you, isn't it, Dino?
That was more of a cheating scandal than the money scandal.
The money is more of a wrongdoing.
It's a very, very weird country with our football, considering the fact that they like to promote like Fiorentina, who got relegated to Serie B, they promoted extra teams just so Fiorentina could get back into the league. I listened to this podcast; it's brilliant. It's called a totally Italian podcast. You should listen to it. It's class. They go on different sections. One day they'll do a manager, one day they'll do an owner, another day they'll do a team or a bunch of players, something like that. You know what I mean? But they tell you about stuff like this, how corrupt they are, and they'll just say, "Yeah, let's just change the rules for this year. Let's get these back up, and then just revert back to the old rules." Like, it's unbelievable how they do it, but I don't know.
Yeah, because see, it's taken a long time as well to build up the reputation again after what happened that time. You know what I mean? A lot of people had abandoned Italian football because they just thought the corruption was top to bottom and it was rife.
Think about what Dino said, Niall. Juventus went to Serie B in an absolute state and kept their full 11. Pavel Nedved was playing in Serie
B. Yeah.
Del Piero. And they came back up and as if they were just away for a season, as if it was nothing, and then back up to the top of the Serie A again. And as Dino said, he's spot on. And then there's two of us who are absolutely suffering in the gutter, like, you know.
Yeah. Well,
the questions weren't asked.
I'd say there was no doubt that Juventus were going to come up. I mean, to be honest with you, looking at it, the Juventus B team probably would have won that league anyway. They're along their stars.
Yeah.
So for those boys, it was like taking a hiatus for you. But it must have been great for the other clubs playing against those guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think what it means as well is, like, look how that's the passion you need for your club. Like, if the way Leeds went down, every single player gone. Man United goes down, every player goes. Liverpool, they all go. They all want to be in the top league. But then boys are like, no, this is a historic club. This is something that we really, if we do this, well, most of them are already legends before that anyway. So they were all just like, we just want this club back to where you get. Because they're not mercenaries there. They'll give you everything, blood, sweat and tears, everything. Where it's different in the Premier League. It's a lot more, unfortunately, about money and status and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think remember it back at the time as well when it all unfolded and stuff like that. They dished out the punishment. I think the players at Juventus still had a point to prove, and they felt that it was nearly a personal attack even on themselves. And I think that's why they sort of bonded together as well and said, look, we need to put this right, because, you know, if you walk away from a situation like that, you take the easy deal to move somewhere else, Real or Barca or PSG or whatever it is, you kind of have that shadow hanging over you for the rest of your career, saying, well, you know, what happened there? That, you know, that sort of black spot on your career, that asterisk that says, you know, but you were there as well, and you were there when this happened, and you were a part of it all, you know. So they probably felt like they really needed to stay to put it right. Dave, question for you. This whole stuff going on with Inter Milan, you must be concerned of how it's going to impact AC in terms of, like, I mean, both teams are planning on moving to a new stadium and stuff like that and all. Do you think that the net effect of this when Inter Milan, if it did go the wrong way, would have a huge impact on AC as well?
Well, I think it's a whole league thing now. I understand, like, the owners previously before AC Milan, Chinese as well. Like, I think it's a whole league thing. I think they've lost. I don't think they're on BT Sport anymore either, so they're losing big contract deals. I think there's rumors Juve want rid of Ronaldo because they just don't have the money to pay him. So I think this is a league thing and not just a Milan thing. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how the two boys move into this new stadium, and you haven't a penny to pay anybody.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, the interesting effect is, like, because these are obviously bitter rivals there, obviously from the same city and stuff like that, and always have been down through history. But you're both so intrinsically linked as well in terms of the business of football. And you'll often find in history that when AC are doing well and when Inter are doing well, you're both doing well because you bring each other along. You know, so the city is doing well, everything is doing well. You know what I mean? Which is, you know, not dissimilar to, say, you know, Liverpool or Everton, not dissimilar to, say, Manchester City, Manchester United, or even the London clubs that are closely linked, Spurs and Arsenal. When one is doing well, it normally brings the other one along as well.
Yeah, they want to do well, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I was really coming from. You know, it'd be kind of weird moving into a new stadium and you have AC Milan there, all gung-ho, ready to go at the cusp of taking off again. And then you've Inter down in the doldrums who could potentially be in the second tier, you know, if they were to get, you know, suspended or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Which I think would have a negative impact again on Italian football and again on the launch of the new stadium, and as you said, broadcasting rights and all that kind of thing, you know. How do you see the season panning out? I mean, are AC still in the conversation here potentially for pegging Inter back then?
It's 6 points, but looking at the fixtures, like there's Fiorentina, there's Napoli, there's Juve, there's Lazio away, even Sassuolo, there's Torino away, Juventus away. It's very tough. I'm not just saying that Milan, Inter have obviously, you have to play everybody the same anyway. But Inter have an easier run in, but they've been the far better side out of everybody. You know what I mean? It's mad that it takes Ronaldo to come over to make Juventus lose the league. Who would ever thought we'd say that? But looking at the fixture list now, they're coming into the Europa League with United now without Zlatan, and then they're straight into a home game with Napoli without Zlatan as well. If they lose that or even draw that, Inter win again, it looks like it's clear, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but we all pray anyway.
9 points would be a hell of a lot to try and peg back. And,
yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously with AC Milan there, you have the distraction of the Europa League still, you know what I mean? And that's a mouth-watering toy really for you as a Leeds fan and an AC fan. I mean, you must be dying for Thursday to come along, you know what I mean? Because it'll be very interesting.
I am. No Zlatan. I was hoping Zlatan would do a job, but it looks like he's not going to be there, so we'll have to rely on your lads. A lot of young lads.
Is it Rebic, Dino? Is Rebic still in?
Yeah, we'll have to rely on Rebic. He's a decent striker, but
he's
doesn't play. You don't go on the pitch with 39-year-old Zlatan. I know Zlatan's good now, but he should be starting. You know what I mean? You're only a kid. Like
the talk is Zlatan to be back for the second leg anyway, so that will set it up nicely. So even if the scoreline was kept tight or kept to a draw, I mean, once Zlatan shows up, I mean, God knows what he'll want to do against United, you know what
I mean? Stop, he'll be all over that.
He'll be all over it, you know what I mean? The Zlatan show. Imagine if AC were to put United out and Zlatan was to get the goal that does it, you know what I mean? Like, the interviews would be just off the Richter. You know,
celebrations. I can see him run the muck.
Yeah, so I mean, it's set up nicely, and it's, you know, it's great again to see the league being so competitive and reasonably tight. Let's say, you know what I mean.
As well as we did, we did in the league, we forget that we got knocked out of our group with Real, Shakhtar, and Gladbach. We didn't even come third. Didn't even get Europa. Shakhtar got it. When you look at it.
Well, do you know what I would say about that? And as a Liverpool fan, I'm staring down the barrel of that this season as well. You know, that was probably a godsend.
It's probably a blessing. Now we can say that, yeah, because we have full steam ahead to, you know, the Serie A, which isn't a bad thing when you look at it in this situation.
Because I mean, as Dane alluded to a minute ago, like, I mean, the distraction of the Europa League for AC Milan might be the thing that potentially.
Yeah, then you have Napoli.
Although Inter have been very good.
That's what I'm saying. It's a catch-22. Like, do you whack her all into the Europa League now, or do you just try and win every league game that you have left?
Well, you would think looking at the teams that are left in the Europa League, AC Milan would be one of the teams up there in the conversation, and say potentially one of 4 teams that could go on and win it. And certainly if they got by United, I mean, you'd have to fancy them as having a great chance of going on to potentially win it, you know what I mean? And again, that could be huge for the club in terms of, you know, the announcement that we're back even further, you know what I mean? We're competitive in Europe. Even if it's the Europa League, it doesn't matter. You have to start somewhere, you know what I mean?
It was a tough for so long this season and just fell away. Just stupid, ridiculous results against teams near the bottom of the table. You know what I mean?
To be honest, I thought you had that kind of steel about you, as you said, for so long. You know, Milan, and especially with Zlatan, he basically brings the aura onto the pitch, like, as in, you're up against Milan and Zlatan. You know, you're like nearly defeated kind of for certain teams. Like,
but that argument as well with Lukaku and Zlatan, like stuff like that.
They have a
puts the fire,
Milan there with the two of them, like.
Puts the fire into someone's belly, and Lukaku ran amok that game. Then after that, he scored a penalty straight away. So just little things like that will spur you on to go on and win things. No,
this season, you know, with how close you are, and you're still in the Europa League, is probably, you know, a good chance for you to build before hopefully new offspring for both of us. You know what I mean? If you go through Europa and you beat Napoli, why can't you? Like, it is you know, who knows?
So the thing about the two squads, like, you look at the AC and Inter squads of last few years, they've pumped money in, like, and you look at some of the Juventus signings, like free signings, like Ramsey and Kadira.
Pjanic is a bit of a strange one.
That was a strange one. Yeah,
that was a bit.
Most of Juve's best players were free transfers. Like. and they still didn't have any competition for the league for nearly 10 years.
Milan as well got we got Barella, Niall, but Tonali, Dino probably knows him very well. Tonali's an absolute gem of a player by the looks of things.
And your man Hockey as well. How would you say
that?
HHU?
It looks more likely now that we can hold on to these young talents instead of, being a feeder to other European super clubs. Hopefully if everything does stay right, people will come to Milan, people will stay at Milan and Inter Milan, obviously.
Yeah, some of those players that went to Juve are, it is kind of a strange one because as we well know, we call these players that they went on a free, but we know nothing is free. But it's like the Ramsey one was an interesting one because he's a very, very good footballer and a very talented footballer. There's no doubt about it. But whether Juventus were going to put him, a player like that into their team and actually use to his strengths and stuff like that. So as you said, it was kind of weird. They were going out signing these players on a free. And as you said, it looks like they were trying to gather up free players because, obviously they thrown all their money in Ronaldo. So are Juve in the conversation at all in the run-in? Is there a situation there where you could see them coming back into it, or are they?
I think they have to be very careful. I'll never rule them out because, let's face it, they're champions and they've been champions for a couple of, and they have Ronaldo. You know what I mean? I know, as Dino alluded to, it's mad how, we bring Ronaldo in and it doesn't go your way, which is crazy. But they still have him. If Inter Milan, draw or whatever, you're never going to completely rule Juventus out. I think what they have to be careful, though, is, they still have Chiellini, Bonucci, and they don't look like they're getting replaced anytime soon. They have to be aware of that, the transformation, and the transition. You look at Barcelona suffering from it. The likes of Piqué still hanging around in the team. The midfield, Busquets still hanging around, I know, they're legends and all, but you have to be able to transition and get the next ready, Well,
you're saying a lot of that now with a lot of the European powerhouses at the moment. You even see it you see it there even with Bayern Munich. They still have a couple of players there. You see it with Paris Saint-Germain. They still have a couple of players there that are hanging around. Real Madrid, the situation with Sergio Ramos, still hanging around. You know what I mean? And it's just, I don't know. Maybe they're looking at Zlatan at 39 and they're going, these guys can still go. You look at players normally, years ago we'd be thinking of players when you get to 32, 33, you're kind of get there or thereabouts. Some of these players are playing on now 36, 37, 38, 39, and at a very high level. You look at Zlatan, he's still world class, at 39.
He can go for as long as he wants, really.
Look at Ronaldo, look at these players, they've kept themselves so physically fit, mentally and physically, you know what I mean? But these guys still look that they're in their early 30s and they're still playing at that level, you know what I mean? So it's who knows? We're going to see a lot of change over the coming year or two. Where you see potentially maybe Ramos moving on. You know what I mean? Ronaldo might move on from Juve, as you say, Chiellini and Bonucci, and these players. These players are really getting on, and they're kind of battle hardened as well because they've had a tough old career in the Italian league as well. Because it's not for the faint-hearted. When you play the match in that Italian league, you play the match in that Italian league. Those lads are, what I would call old school English players, where they don't take any prisoners when they play. And maybe that's where the problem is, where the likes of a Ramsey comes into Juve, you know what I mean, where he's let's say had a soft time at Arsenal or anything like that, but you know what I mean, when you look up and down the league, how many games in the season are you going to be in a proper war, you know what I mean? You get a lot more of that in the Italian league, I think, with Roma and Napoli and these kind of teams, you know what I mean, like Lazio, they're even though they're at a certain level, but you'll know you've played them when you walk off a pitch after 90 minutes.
I think as well, Niall, what Dino touched on was spot on. He mentioned Sassuolo. There's no easy games in Serie A. They look forward to that. They see Milan and their eyes light up. They have Berardi and a couple of other, everyone in that Italian league just sees blood. They don't care if it's Milan or Inter or Juve.
The first season they sold Berardi to Sassuolo. The first game was 4-3, and he scored 4 against AC. He scored the 4 goals. They'd only sold him. He's brilliant. He's brilliant.
Yeah, he's quality.
I don't know what happened there.
Well, you only have to look at Atalanta this year in the Champions League. They've been absolutely fantastic. You know what I mean? They came out of a very tough group as well. You know what I mean? That wasn't expected. Yeah. So hats off to them as well, you know. And you look at Napoli. We're Liverpool fans, so we know exactly how competitive Roma and Napoli are. You know what I mean? And many times have they put us through the wars, you know. But yeah, it's interesting times in the Italian league. It really is on a bit of a bounce at the moment. You know what I mean? So I mean, there's no point talking about predictions, is there? Really? You know, Craig's going to say Inter on the way to the title, hopefully.
Yeah, I think the prediction could be, Niall, where everything goes after this season when the dust settles. Let's see who comes out of it between the three, include Juve in that as well, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're going to have their own their own struggles really to figure out what's going to happen there. You know what I mean? But certainly, it's going to be a great run in and one to keep focused on because Italian football is definitely back. There's no doubt about it, and especially with those teams, it's definitely back. You know, and way more interesting than everyone just beating the Juve drum like most seasons have been in a long time. You know what I mean? So. Yeah, Dane. What are you thinking? Are you nailed on second, or do you still think you have a chance? Or
oh yeah, I think second's definitely nailed on. I don't think Juve are catching. Looking at Juve's fixtures now, they have nearly all at the top of the league to play still. But as Craig said, it's Cristiano Ronaldo. You just don't know when he's going to show up and just score 5 in one game if he wants to. But I think the league is wrapped up. I think Inter are way too strong. Like Lukaku, just every time he takes a shot, hits the back of the net. That's a kind of striker he's been for most of his career. He's over 100 and something goals in the Premier League, and that's not an easy feat. People slag Heskey as well. Like Heskey is over 100 goals in the Premier League. No, that's how hard that is to do. Like
absolutely. Sure, I looked at Inter's stats there the other day, comparing them to last season as well. And they were saying that their stats aren't that much different insofar as, but they've been scoring a lot more headed goals, which is
Lukaku and Naturo even said each other up. They kind of go by who's in the best position, and I reflected and I wish Mane and Salah would kind of do that at times because they hate each other. Yeah. But like Lukaku has about who's here? Lukaku has I think 24 and 18. Can't ask for more than that. Whereas Naturo has 13 and 24 and 6 assists. Nearly to Lukaku. So there's an unselfishness there, and there's a team win first. Yeah. You know,
I noticed as well, typical of Antonio Conte's teams as well. There's a spread of the goals as well. So a lot of people are chiming in with the goals, which is a trade of his teams. You know,
it could be Sanchez or midfield or defense. Like Skriniar got the winner last night, 1-0.
Yeah. I often describe Antonio Conte as being one of those horses running at Cheltenham. Once he gets his nose in front, he's so difficult to peg back. You're running up that Cheltenham hill and you can't get him back. Like, you know what I mean? That's how I describe him. You know what I mean? I remember this time at Chelsea as well. He was so dogged, like, and just, you know, you nearly like because we love football so passionately. I sort of at times I hated playing against his teams because he was like a football killer, you know, that kind of way. But always got the results. You know what I mean? So. But yeah, we look forward to it. It's going to be a great run-in, and as always, brilliant for coming on, lads. You know what I mean? Because it's not often we can take a break from the Premiership. Thank God.
Thank God.
It's nice to be talking about different teams and different brand of football, really. So until next time, thanks a million, lads, for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thanks very much, Niall. Cheers, lads.
Boys.
See you later.